Tonight we're going to be talking about sort of an introduction to the zebrafish programming and sort of what it's founded on, what to expect from a zebrafish program, whether you are a client looking to work with me at some point or a clinician looking to learn from me or with me at some point. We're going to be talking about the 5 beliefs that I have for successful rehab programs, what I believe to be true about the rehab process and the healing process. And these beliefs inform my program pillars. The program pillars are sort of how this all manifests in a day-to-day. What does it actually look like in the day-to-day client session? I'm going to be sharing about the 5 applied the framework for recovery. This is the 4-step process that I have come to that's ideal for exercise selection, execution, intention, and then also the process for motor learning after having a spinal cord injury. And then lastly, we'll briefly go over the 5 applied systems that have a deep influence on programming and my coaching style. I draw on several different methods to cater to the diverse presentation of SCI and neuro. So as we know, there's no one-size-fits-all protocol. Everyone is very, very different. And so we need to be able to draw from lots of different tools and lots of different methods to figure out what works for that person in front of us. And then, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about, if you are a clinician, how you can deepen your understanding and we can maybe work together based on your learning goals. I'll direct you to which workshop would be appropriate. All right. But for the most part today, depending on how far we get through all of this, the main thing that I want to get across to you all is that something as elusive, complex, and diverse as SCI rehab, this can still be distilled into a logical framework and progression. So as confusing and overwhelming as it may be, we can still create some frameworks here that help make sense of it all and help us give us some logical templates to work off of. And I hope this will help you, within the context of SCI rehab, appreciate structure and stepwise progressions while still having logical reasoning for individualization, as we know exists. So again, structure, but then knowing how and when to sort of break the rules away from that framework within logical reason. I will say, though, that this whole framework idea is the objective of the 3-day foundations course. So in the 3-day foundations course, I give you this framework and all of those responsible deviations. And I'll share some of this framework today, but you may be left with more questions than answers. And I'll just say that the course gives you that exact application of that framework. Like, what does it actually look like in a session and over the course of time in a program? All right. For context, just a little introduction to me and the zebrafish program. Again, so you have a little bit of context. So I graduated with my bachelor's in exercise science or exercise biology in 2011. And then I immediately started working at an activity-based therapy clinic. Activity-based therapy clinics are essentially post-physical therapy or even concurrent with physical therapy, and they're very, very dynamic. You'll get a very diverse range of activities and modalities in these centers. My experience there, I worked at a center like this for about 4 years, and this is where I got this really really broad experience working with all types of bodies, all types of neurological conditions, and case presentation. So a lot of just hands-on experience that was sort of like thrown into it, and lots of experience. From there, I was kind of feeling like there was something missing in the puzzle to actual like neurological reconnection to some like to the body. So my clients were sort of like feeling like this is good, but like we're still sort of like there's still sort of this disconnect in what we're doing. And so some of my clients, they started working with the Pilates method, and I became very intrigued. I took a workshop, like a weekend workshop on Pilates, like not unsimilar to what I'm offering in the 3-day course. And it really, really opened up my eyes to this whole world of Pilates and beyond. So I started my instructor training in 2014. It was a 2-year process to become a fully certified instructor in 2016. So it's no just willy-nilly weekend certification. This is a really full-on process. And during that time and throughout that time of my training and then of course afterwards, I basically was researching and developing how Pilates could be applied to the SCI population with a few of my very, very willing and trusting clients. And I'm very grateful for those clients in the early years. Zebrafish Neuro then was formally created in 2017. Gosh, so like 9 years ago. Now I'm just doing the math. With one of my clients turned business partners, Theo St. Francis. He sustained a C6 spinal cord injury in, I think, 2013. And he's just been with me, he was just with me all along the way. Our goal together in working together was to document all of the things that we were finding in this Pilates-based approach. And everything that I was observing in the breadth of all of my SCI clients, while he was kind of serving as this lived firsthand experience in experiencing the work. Like, how did it feel in his body? So it was a beautiful collaboration from both sides. We formally published our book From the Ground Up in 2020. Like a month after COVID hit, you can see us wearing our masks. We weren't even really able to fully properly celebrate the publishing of the book. But there we were. We wanted to make sure it got out. Couldn't wait any longer. And then with COVID, my programming, my hands-on programming, my offering, my services, turned primarily into the remote context. So I was doing Zoom sessions and people were working from their living room floor. It was basically whatever people could do from their living room floor. Really minimal equipment, floor-based or on their bed. This pivot to minimal equipment, floor-based approach was actually turning out to be incredibly successful because a lot of accessibility barriers were dropped. Accessibility barriers in terms of people didn't have to commute to come see me anymore. They could just stay at home. Geographically, they didn't need to live even remotely near me. I started working with people all over the world. And we were just using what people had in the living room. So there was really no excuse not to move. We were going for it. And also what was really beautiful about that is that clients could replicate their sessions on their own between sessions. So they didn't necessarily need me to be there in order to do their workout. And whether you know this or not, the success of a program is actually the implementation that happens between sessions. So this was turning out to be incredibly successful and beneficial for my clients. There's Christy working on the floor. All right. So even when we started to return back to in-person sessions, I still found myself really wanting to work with my clients on the floor for all of the reasons that we just stated. In addition, it really proved to them that they didn't need my magic hands in order to make the thing happen. We were getting really strategic with band placement, using bands, and having them truly, truly understand the depth of the movement and of the work themselves. I still do use the equipment for refinement, especially when I'm in person with people. But as you can see, these two movements that I just showed you on the screen are very, very similar. One's using official formal Pilates equipment, and one is using just some bands attached to the wall. So you can very much dupe Pilates equipment and still have that be available if you wanted to anchor some bands to your wall at home, which a lot of my clients have done. Yeah, so that's me. All right. Let's do a couple torso twists in place just to give you a little bit of movement between sections. Get your blood pumping, 10 torso twists. Just get your body moving a little bit. Nice. All right. So I wanted to share about the beliefs in the zebrafish program. These beliefs form the clinical and philosophical foundation of the zebrafish approach. So these beliefs are built from 15 years of clinical experience, working with hundreds of bodies, tens of thousands of hours of interaction. And it's a collection of what I've observed that contributes to a successful program and successful client or patient, whatever success means to them, right? All right, so just running through these. One thing that I believe to be true about the healing process is that safety is the foundation for healing and lasting neurological change. If you've ever heard of sympathetic and parasympathetic drive, this is what that is referring to. So making sure that the body is in a state of perceived safety, connection, trust, and creating these conditions that support a state in the body that's conducive for healing, growth, and integration of what we're doing. Something else that I believe to be true, which I hope you understand as well, is that the human body is incredibly complex, and there are a lot of integrated systems happening all at the same time. And we need to understand also that movement patterns are shaped by the continuous interaction of all of these systems within our body. And these systems include the central nervous system, like the brain and the spinal cord, the autonomic nervous systems, like what regulates your heart rate and your respiratory system and your digestion. It's regulated by the fascial system, the organs, your hormones, your emotional state, and your previous lived experience. So all of these things inform your movement. And I think in that belief of like, this is more than just movement, right? Where the spinal cord injury is impacting like the whole system, the whole being. And so respecting that. All right, let's see. This idea that neuro rehab protocols apply, but individualization is essential. So, yes, you have a neurological injury or a condition, but everyone is very different. And so understanding that there is a degree, as I mentioned before, yes, let's use frameworks, but let's have this degree of wiggle room and individualization strategies to curate a program that's individualized. I also just want to take a quick note too, just to differentiate that a lot of times spinal cord injury gets grouped in with other neurological conditions like stroke or brain injury, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's. But understanding the difference between brain-based neurological conditions and spinal cord injury, there's a very foundational difference in where the injury is or where the condition is what part of the body is influenced, right? Which makes the rehab protocol different for those different populations. So just understanding that the brain-based protocols that there's actually a lot more research for are actually very different from what SCI should be doing. All right. Number 4, a belief is that subjective progress is as important, if not more, to the individual anyways, than objectively measured progress. So at least in the United States, we are bound a little bit to our insurance, right? Where we have to prove objective functional progress. But after a deep breath, also recognizing that perceived progress from the individual is also really, really important. And some of these things that we can't really quantify that are hard to quantify, like confidence, your relationship with your body, like how you feel about yourself. Like, how do we quantify that? And whether or not we can, maybe that's the question. Maybe that's a question for another day, but just recognize that that's just as important and something that I believe to be just as important when we're marking through progress and what progress looks like. And then lastly, which again, this sort of came out with the floor-based programming, was that sustainable success is determined by the individual's ownership of the process. So going back to that idea again, that the things that my clients are doing between sessions is actually the thing that's pushing them forward. And that's actually the part that's most sustainable, right? So maybe you're using me as a consult. Maybe clients are using me as a consult that they see once a week or twice a month or once a month. But it's ultimately up to them to do that implementation of the work. And that's what gives you success. All right. If you want to throw in the chat, feel free to share the number of the belief that most resonates with you. If there's something that feels really good, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, if you'd like to join the conversation. So safety is important for change, for growth. Respecting the body's complexity and taking that into account. SCI is fundamentally different than other brain-based conditions, and individualization is very important. Recognizing subjective wins and making sure that that individual is taking ownership of their own recovery process. All right. So then from these beliefs, I have then created program pillars. So the program pillars describe how these beliefs are applied, nice 5s, how these beliefs are applied in the day-to-day practice. So the pillars describe a little bit, share a little bit about what to expect if you were to work with me as an athlete or if you're coming to work with me in an intensive. They also function as session design guides that help me understand what is the point of the exercise and just helps me sort of like check myself. Everything that I'm doing in the program and prescribing and bringing into the program goes back to these pillars of like, why am I including this? All right. So the first pillar, and again, these play off of the beliefs. So the first pillar is integrated systems thinking. The body's complex. There's a lot going on. We need to be thinking about all of these things when formulating someone's program. And looking at, all of these things and not just the specific impairment or the specific complaint. And, again, just reiterating what I said before, that movement is shaped by so many things that we can't just be looking at, say, this person has this going on in their shoulder. It's like, oh, well, what's really like going on in their life, or what's going on in their hormones, what's going on in their organs. And so as a clinician, I make sure that I try to work the best I can to study human physiology as a whole, not just like neuromotor patterning and musculoskeletal programming. I'm looking at everything. So I'm looking at like how hormones are influencing tissue health and how like stress can manifest and pain science and all of that, gut health, all of these things can influence. At first, this can feel very, very overwhelming because you're like, whoa, well, the body's really complex. But that's why there's also the importance of having an interdisciplinary team that you can refer out to. So like, I don't need to be a nutrition and gut expert. I need to know the basics and then to be able to identify it and then basically say, hey, I think you might benefit from maybe working with a nutritionist and doing some gut testing. And then I can refer out there. But again, it's important to look at it as a whole system, be able to recognize things, and then have your team to refer out to. My second pillar is this statement of good inputs equals good outputs. So if we understand that movement is a response to the information that it's receiving from the environment. All right, so movement is a response to the information it's receiving from the environment. The environment can be an external environment, and the environment could be something that's happening from the inside. Okay, in kind of my world and Pilates world, we would call this spontaneous organization. Sometimes it's referred to as reflexive organization. So reflexive organization of movement based on the demands of what's going on the outside, especially when it comes to complex movements where there's like more than two things to think about. We can't be thinking about engage. We can't be thinking about swing my leg, blah, 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 engage the core, stance leg, push off through the toe. That's too many things to think about. So basically, I want to create an environment that makes the body reflexively organized in the way that it needs to, so that you don't have to think about all those different pieces. It's just my body feels and then it responds. I tell my clients during sessions that because of this, I'm going to be tinkering. I say use the word tinkering. I don't know, just like that word. I'll be tinkering with equipment and props within an exercise. So we'll kind of like get you in a position, and then I'll be like moving springs, changing bands, putting a ball here, taking away a ball, putting an Eboso mat there. And basically, I'm trying to find that perfect input that makes your body really happy and respond in the way that we want to. And I think really this is where the magic happens, because it's not that my hands necessarily made you do the thing. It was like, oh, we explained it in the right way, or we prompted your body with a little prop here that just made you do the thing. Yeah. All right. Number 3 is framework guided programming. So I really, really believe in creating like scaffolding for programming. I used to work in a world in my brain where it was very hodgepodge. I was like, let's try this and let's do this. And again, that's where I think I did a lot of trial and error and learned a lot. But now I really believe in slotting things in a scaffold and into a framework. And that's really helpful for my brain to understand what's coming next. But also, I can teach this framework now to my clients and to other clinicians. I can teach this framework now so my clients have a full understanding of where they are in the trajectory of, where they're going. And they understand like, oh, I need to do this. And then this is sort of like the next step. And this is what I have to do in order to get there. So they're not going into it blind, which is great. It provides a lot of clarity. In addition to frameworks, it also gives me sort of a scaffolding to slot in my exercises for exercise selection and sequencing. So, there's like some rigidity there that keeps things consistency. But I also then put a little asterisk there and say, well, there's also room for a lot of individualization there with logic. So I've got like little rules that I can break depending on the person in front of me. And it's like, if this, then I'm able to do that. Or if I see this going on, let's kind of flow down this way in the framework. Yeah. All right. Number 4 is prioritizing self-supported movement. So in my program, yes, I'm going to be using props and equipment and balls. But the end goal, right, is to get my clients to move without all the gadgets and without all of the tech and without all of the super supportive things. One of my clients, he says how he loves that my equipment is very analog, meaning it's like mechanical. So we're not reliant on a lot to support his body. The reality is, because the reality is the equipment, and even myself when I'm holding a client, that's covering up their true strength. And so to really get the best idea of someone's abilities is to have them move on the floor by themselves. And yeah, as I kind of already mentioned, when someone's moving on the floor by themselves, they don't need my hands. It's also proof that it's not my magic hands that is making them do the thing. Like, they are actually doing the thing themselves. They're able to replicate that. Yeah. All right. And then lastly, a bunch of you put number 5s in the chat from the beliefs. So here it is. This is the pillar: client ownership. Everything that I'm doing in my sessions is to support that client collaboration and partnership, and eventually have that like full handover to them should they choose that they want to go on by themselves. So I am educating them on the process just as I'm educating you now. And I see some clients in here. Fantastic. So that they understand what the process is. They know the anatomy. They know the biomechanics. They know the why I'm progressing them. They know why I'm putting a ball here. So that way we have now 2 brains solving and working on their case instead of just me, right? I really expect my clients to be active collaborators and giving me detailed feedback and helping me find these good inputs. It just makes it faster, it makes it deeper, and it makes it more interesting for you, for the client. Yeah, so again, if you are going to work with me, just expect that you are an active collaborator. All right. Which one of those resonates the most? You can feel free to put that in the chat. Those program pillars. What do you like most of that of those 5? Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, the clinicians would put 3s. Yeah, you're like, give me something to organize my thoughts. Yes. And the good inputs. Yeah, that strategic input of for queuing. Yeah, really cool. Thanks for your participation on that. All right. I also wanted to just quickly clarify about this work. So I call my coaching sessions, I call them integrated movement sessions. And the goal of these integrated movement sessions is to improve the relationship with the body and how your body all works together. So pushing for integration. And these are words that clients have told me that they feel a completeness or a wholeness, which, spoiler alert, I really think comes from the fascial work, working through fascial lines. And that when people come to work with me, they're not expecting like this sweaty or like heart rate cardiovascular workout. Like, that's not what I do. It's not important. It's just not what I do. So I just want to quickly clarify the difference between in an integrated movement session and the objective of creating a body relationship and body connection, and then figuring out a way, like I'll either write someone a program or I'll outsource for that cardiovascular or like hypertrophy strength training. Okay, great. Let's do some arm jacks or arm movements to break that up a little bit. Yep. All right. Fantastic. All right. So we're going to get into now what I call the framework for recovery. And essentially, this is the 4-step process that I've observed to be really important for helping someone build this relationship with their body and turn that into something productive. There's 4 parts to it, and we're going to start on the base of the pyramid. So the first part of this process is building awareness. Thank you. Building awareness. Just wanted to pull up my notes. Building awareness. What this means is helping someone understand what their like current baseline is. So, like what is their current level of ability in actuality? And again, taking away all the equipment and taking away my support when it's just on their own, that is a really beautiful snapshot of what they're able to do at this point in time. Building awareness is also really important. So that way, when I introduce a new input or a new cue or a new setup, a client can differentiate and tell me, oh yeah, that was way better. Keep that there. Or no, I did not like that. Take that away, right? It really accelerates the troubleshooting process when someone's highly aware of their body. And then also being able to communicate that to me. So building awareness. Awareness also helps people recognize and appreciate the changes that are happening. As we know with neuro, it's a slow go process. And so being able to actually identify those changes is important to keep wanting to continue on. The second step in this process is creating connection. So what this might look like is helping someone better understand. So if awareness was maybe a better understanding of their body or like a joint mechanic, creating connection is then the ability to send messages to that area of the body and feel that they are actually like the body's actually receiving those messages. Some clients will tell me that when they feel like they're connecting to their body, that it'll feel like their body is tingling or they're getting some like burning sensation, maybe like flush or heat. It's not necessarily like I'm now like fully lifting my leg or lifting my arm, but it's like, oh, I feel like something's happening there. Like we're starting to get some sparks. This is often looks like high repetition, isolated exercises. Like this picture here is me moving Theo's legs in one plane of motion, sort of one tempo, one range of motion. And we're just trying to build up that relationship. His like brain maps, the maps of his hips and his legs, we're trying to build those in his brain so he has more access to them. Step number 3 is integration of the parts or patterning some sort of functional movement. So the integration phase is when these connections, multiple connections, so multiple body parts, then come together to create something a bit more functional. So we're like now starting to see like, how does this shoulder and the core, how does that relate to one another? So now we're going to integrate these two pieces together. And again, that often looks like something a bit more functional, like what Julia's doing, more of a front prop. And then at the very, very end, after someone's got a little bit more integration in their body, then we can add load. Then we can add this intensity to it. We can add resistance. We can like overload that a little bit. It's almost like prove to me that you actually do have this integration while adding some resistance here. Okay. So I'm not going to be loading a pattern that's not what I want. So I don't want to reinforce something that is sub-efficient. All right. I want like really, really clean movement, and then we will load it so it stays a little bit more permanent. That's the framework. There's always exceptions to the rules, but that's what I go over in the 3-day course. The way that I use the framework then is for example, when I'm doing an exercise with someone, I could be doing the same exercise with someone, but for a completely different intention. So maybe, for example, this exercise of a shoulder roll, let's just go so basic, a shoulder roll. I could be using that to teach someone about the biomechanics of the shoulder. That would be the phase of awareness. Or I could be using it for high repetition to help them build their brain maps of what that joint is. Okay. Then maybe if I have them loading on a chair, or sorry, loading on a table and still doing those collarbone rolls, well, now I've integrated that into something functional. And I've now integrated actually through the rest of the arm. So we integrated a few parts there. And then to load it, I could maybe apply some pressure or have them do it in quadruped. So the same exercise can be done with lots of different intentions. Or you can use this framework to structure session progression, which I'll share about here. But first, before I share that, I need to just talk about junctions. So junctions tell me where to start. I'm not going to get into this too much, but basically, when I'm working with someone with a spinal cord injury, I would say like most people anyway, either way, spinal injury or not, I'm going to be working at the shoulder complex. The shoulder complex is it's a relatively accessible place for people to work with because it's least affected by the spinal cord injury. And so they're going to have the most baseline awareness to it. So we're going to build that up and really get a strong connection to the shoulders. So how I might do that for someone is I'm going to give them, and then like this is just an example. There's lots of ways to do this, but this is an example. To build awareness, I might give them an anatomy lesson. Then I might have them do some high repetition, isolated shoulder exercises, like a landmine press or a chest press. Then I might have them flip over and I'm going to have them integrate that through their own body weight. So in a prone prop position. And then I might increase the intensity of that prone prop position by bringing it to a higher level of some sort. In this instance, I had her do it now through her hands and at a higher level. All right. So like that would be maybe a whole session that I would do with someone. Anatomy, shoulder isolation, integration, and then loading it. So again, frameworks, right? Super helpful. Super helpful. That's the framework for recovery in 10 minutes. Arm jacks, here we go. Again. All right. Now we're going to get into the applied systems, and I'm going to see if I can do this in 6 minutes. For the applied systems. So in the applied systems, these are the 5 systems that have a really heavy influence on the zebrafish program and the coaching style that I have come to develop. They are essentially, if the framework is sort of posed as how or like why exercises are done, like what's the intention, then the framework is essentially how they were done. Like, what does it look like? Like, how does it manifest? And so I do it through these 5 systems. System number 1 is nervous system regulation. I'll go through these individually. I'm just going to lay them out for you right here. Nervous system regulations. System number 2 is the motor development progression. I shouldn't say 2, 1, 2, 3. There's not really an order. Another system is fascial tensegrity and the use of fascial lines. Pilates, also known as contrology. And then the 5th system, or the last system that I'm just sharing, is the Bartenia fundamentals and Laban studies. So those are the 5 systems. I have chosen to, I will say right now I have 5 systems that I have heavily influenced my program, but it's not to say that it's done. These are 5 systems that I've come across in all of my Con Ed and exploration that I feel like really have something to offer for neuro rehab. And I'm going to share what those things are in a second here. But it's important to have all of these different systems sort of in my brain when I'm working with someone, because the entry point to someone's body might be different than the last client that I worked with. So, for example, if I'm working with someone with high neurological tone, I'm probably not going to be having them do Pilates because Pilates is really restrictive in nature. It's very precise and very like nuanced and like focused on creating stability. Someone with high tone needs mobility, they need movement, they need freedom, they need like a release. So I'm going to have them do something a bit more playful and a bit more expressive, maybe something like the motor development progression or the Bartenieff system. So it's really about figuring out what door can I knock on to get into someone's body. We play around with that. And then from there, I can say, oh, let's try some Bartenieff stuff, or let's try some Pilates stuff, and like see how that feels. But it's like the entry point. It's like knowing how to enter into someone's body. All right. Oops. So for nervous system regulation, again, I said this in the beliefs section. It's about getting someone in their parasympathetic or their ventral vagal state so that their bodies are primed to receive whatever it is I'm about to give them. It's sort of like prepping the system to, be receiving. A lot of times people think of getting into a parasympathetic state as using your breath, and that's absolutely true. It's a powerful, powerful portal for that. But for me, anyways, I find breath work really challenging. I'm like more antsy than to settle down and just work on breath work. Read that how you want. So I have found some really beautiful ways to incorporate movement and self-massage at specific points around the body to help with moving that body into a more parasympathetic state. That really helps for me. So I tend to use, this is the first door I knock on for, if you look at the third person on that list, is like anyone new to meditation practices that maybe need more than just breath work. I've got these other strategies. But this is also the primary door I knock on for anyone with high neurological tone. And let's be real, anyone that's gone through trauma needs some of this kind of reset. I share a lot about this system in my Working with High Tone workshop. This is like primarily what I'm talking about, nervous system regulation. All right, motor development progression. The motor development progression is the foundational sequence that we have gone through as infants to develop the necessary strength, mobility, stability, skill, coordination, integration of all of our body parts that's required of advanced functional movement. And maybe this progression looks familiar to you if you have little ones around or have witnessed little ones, where babies will move from supine, prone, side lying, seated all the way up to that advanced posture. So I really use this sequencing as a template for my session programming, where even if someone has a lot of function, if they're walking, I will still start them in these primary positions of supine, prone, and side lying, because there's a lot that can be gained from these positions, these foundational pieces that often get missed when someone sort of skipped all the way to walking again. It's also important to note that just because you have this sequencing, it's not just the positions, it's also the little movements within and between the positions that really matter. So what I call transitions. And just sharing Jackson doing a transition, inspired by the motor development progression, or like we see this in infants, going from a prone to a seated position. There we go. Very nice. So the point of that, the motor development progression, is to use that as inspiration for how to reintegrate the parts of the body together and relearn some of these foundational movement skills. I use the motor development progression for the first door that I'm knocking on. I use that for people with high tone. It's very exploratory, playful, non-restrictive, allows them to move in a body that is quite restricted. I use this a lot with clients that need to get their wiggles out. I don't want to restrict them if they just need to I just need to disperse some energy. Anyone that's looking for a gait focused program, As we know, the motor development progression in infants, that was all meant to prime them for the ability to walk. So by going through this process and replicating this process, or at least using it as inspiration, we can really build in all of those required, again, mobility and stability and all of the components that are needed for gait. And anyone that's looking to develop out of wheelchair movement routines. All right. I talk about the motor development progression a lot in my floor-based programming workshop and extensively in the 3-day foundations course. All right. Fascial tensegrity and fascial chains. What is fascia? Fascia, in its simplest definition, is connective tissue. It surrounds all of our tissues, all of our other tissues like muscles, bones, organs. With inactivity, it can become kind of matted. So if you can see in this picture, that's healthy fascia, which is like very wet. It's very like it can glide on each other. But with inactivity, it becomes dehydrated, matted, and decreases its function with inactivity. Its function is important. Fascia is really important for force transmission. So not necessarily the creation of movement, but force transmission. So like that wholeness, that body connectivity that we were talking about before, that's what people are feeling. Fascia is incredibly sensory. So for someone with limited sensation, it would make sense that we would want to leverage some fascia. Fascia also has some really amazing mechanical properties that help create stiffness in a body and like joint integrity. And as I mentioned, the chains create whole body connectivity. Those are the chains. For application of fascia, I'll use the chains for people with low tone or complete spinal cord injury because, again, it creates that force transmission across joints, helps with joint integrity. And I'll be looking to improve the health of the fascia for people with high tone, low sensory, people with low sensation. I'll leverage fascia for improving proprioception. And then also fascia hosts a lot of pain receptors. And so if we can organize the fascia and prioritize some of the health of the fascia, maybe we can drop some of that pain, maybe neuropain. Jury's out, but that's my theory anyway. I talk about the fascial systems and the fascial chains and the fascial health a ton in the 3-day course. So if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, 3-day course is where you need to go. All right, we have contrology, Pilates. Pilates inherently demands integration, which is why I gravitated towards it. It has like an inherent demand for specifically postural stability for mobility. So a lot of times we hear, oh, Pilates is great for the core. Like, yes, I'll just say like, yes, it's great for the core because every movement that's generated in Pilates is meant to come from a place of core stability and then radiate outwards. And of course, the equipment, I'll say ground-based movement is amazing, but I will say the equipment, the Pilates equipment is incredible for offering this dynamic support. So I can put someone in hands and knees position and not be ruining my body for it. I'll use the Pilates equipment and Pilates method for people who need refinement and precision, people that appreciate that nuance as well. I'll use the equipment for larger bodies that I can't physically support myself. So I'm leveraging the equipment for that. And then the reformer is really great for advanced clients. It's an advanced apparatus. So it's really great for challenging those types of clients. All right. I talk a little bit about Pilates concepts of integration and that radiated core in the 3-day foundations course. And then I talk about the application of movement using equipment and leveraging the equipment in the advanced applications course in the level 2. So the level 2 is open to people who have taken the level 1 foundations course. All right. Last one here, Bartenief. I love this system. I think it's completely underrated. I'm probably going to undersell it because I put it as the last thing, but it's sort of the most abstract. So when I'm teaching it to clinicians, it's like kind of the last piece of the puzzle for people. It's used a lot in dance studies. And essentially, I love it because it's an alternate. It uses an alternative perspective, alternative language to describe movement and mechanics. So you're not actually talking about anatomy and biomechanics. You're not in the weeds of that. It discusses more about like effort and how someone's interacting with their environment and what shapes they're creating with their bodies, as opposed to saying like do a lunge. They're saying like create this like shape that kind of looks like with these angles and all that. And then it talks a lot about the relationships between body parts. So understanding kind of like what I was saying with Pilates is how like the core then helps you radiate out through your limbs, for example, is one of the patterns in the Bartenieff system. I'll use this system primarily for people with high tone. There's a component to the Bartenieff system that is paired along with psychological growth, specifically after trauma. So helping people rediscover themselves, rediscover an identity and where their place is in the world. And that's paralleled with specific movement patterns. So even as a movement provider, a movement specialist, I can have an effect on someone's like psychological processing of their trauma with and still be within my scope of practice. I sort of do that on the backside. Yeah. I talk about this this a bit in the floor-based programming workshop. Okay, a couple shoulder rolls. All right, so as I said, the framework is when exercises are implemented and in with what intention. And then the applied systems is how it's done. Like what system am I using to like actually do the thing? What door are we knocking on, right? And then just a quick recap of this professional con ed journey. I was sharing a little bit about where you can find more information on some of these components of the zebrafish approach. So if you're brand new to SCI, the groundwork course is an online self-paced course. It's 8 hours and it basically breaks down spinal cord injury 101. And I have guest speakers come on and share their lived experience about different parts of the injury and living with a spinal cord injury. Then you get into these intro workshops, sort of specialty workshops. So that are not necessarily have to be taken in any order. The working with high tone, the floor-based programming, those pair really, really well together. And then separately, if someone was interested in learning how to use a piece of Pilates equipment, and they just want to learn about like safety and sort of basics on it, I do a private in-service for that. So that's like if your clinic has a reformer and you need to learn how to use it, you'd have me just come in and teach you about the reformer. But really, a lot of what the route that a lot of clinicians have taken is going straight to the 3-day course, which gives you the overview of all of the framework that I just described. We go through most of the applied systems and the fascial system a lot. And then with that foundational framework and that understanding of the system, then you can get into the advanced applications course. It's like, okay, let's see what this framework looks like on Pilates equipment. And let's see what this framework looks like with some of these like specialty populations, like really high cervical level spinal cord injury, or on the other side, the ambulatory and standing clients. Yeah. So again, so you'd start with the 3-day course, and then you can kind of like do these little offshoots in the green workshops, or you can drop down and do the advanced applications. All right. That's all I got. Woof. I am 10 minutes over, but you know what? All things considering, that's not bad for me. That's not bad for me.